That will never work. You can't fuck with yourself. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's another thing you can do. That's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever learn to spell? Stop. Be happy. While you're eating. Don't bother me. I've seen better people. Do you really want to do that? And my third grade, give it up. Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. Welcome back to episode 16 of Horrible Writing. I am your host, Paul Sading, and I have another wonderful episode in store for you. Not because I'm talking. This one's actually wonderful because I'm not going to be the one talking. You all are going to absolutely love it. I am humbled and absolutely honored to have the guest that we have today. Many of you will probably know her. If you don't, you will fall in love with her by the time we're done with this session. Her name is Sarah Werner. She's a writer in many facets. Fiction, nonfiction. She does some stuff for Forbes on the side when she's bored out of her mind because she has nothing else going on. But she's also the creator, writer, voice actor behind one of the hottest properties in audio drama at the moment called Girl in Space. The thing I learned and loved about Sarah was the most shocking thing. You will see, trust me, you will see that she is a kind, gentle soul, but she is actually a geek about all the dark and macabre stuff. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. So with no further ado, because I want you to all be able to hear from her, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I'm so excited to be here.
The reason that I asked you to come on is, and I wanted to get you on first, but you had some really important real life stuff to go take care of and, return that balance. So fans of Horrible Writing, I'm big on balance and doing that self-care and, just fitting in all that real life stuff that we need to do for ourselves to keep creating like we do. So you ended up being number 2 interview in this series, though I wanted you to be number 1, but I think you're a gracious number 2, I imagine.
I hope so.
Well, you did, find yourself all alone in deep space, but I'm not going to give any spoilers. There could be many reasons why that happened. So, we'll get a feel for you and how altruistic your reasoning actually is. So I wanted you to come on and talk about one of the attributes that I see you possessing that I don't see enough in the writer community, and I wish, how I wish I did. There are a lot of wonderful people. Most people, in fact, are absolutely wonderful and giving, but few do it like you do it. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you're new to Horrible Writing, in these interviews I do with other writers, I'm not going to talk about necessarily the writing process or what they did to get self-published or how they market this or that. I want to actually talk about life skills and how it affects the writer. So Sarah came to my mind right from the get-go when I started thinking about who could I talk to about spreading positivity and encouragement. And I'll be straight up. You all have heard, if you've gone back through the back catalog, there are 2 writers that I have constantly mentioned from the beginning of this show in the summer of 2017. Sarah is one of them, and Susan K. Quinn is the other one. You two are absolute paragons when it comes to this. And so I wanted to get you on and put the pressure on you and talk to you about that stuff. So when I talk about spreading positivity and encouragement, I want to really put you in a corner and see you come out swinging and show us what you got. Why in the world are you so positive and so encouraging? You spend a lot of energy and a lot of your time that you could be creating. You invest that in other people and you encourage them. Why do you do that?
What a great question. What an amazing question. And I knew that this is something we were going to talk about ahead of time. And I started making a list. And I was like, why do I do this? Because it's not something I'd really thought about. It's just something that I don't want to say it comes naturally to me because it's definitely something I've worked at, but I had to stop and ask myself this question, and it comes from a number of different things. First of all, it comes from, when you have something you really love, and the thing that you want to do most is like share it with everybody. Like you see an amazing movie and you're like, oh my gosh, you have to see this movie. Or you hear a podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, everyone I know, you need to listen to this podcast. That's the feeling that I have about writing. I experience this love of writing, and the first thing I want to do is like, oh my gosh, you need to experience this feeling. I love it, and I need to share it with you. So I think that's first and foremost where it comes from. I used to work for a bank. I worked for a bank in marketing for about 5 years. And I would do NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, every year. And it was so frustrating because I felt very alone in doing it. I had just moved to Sioux Falls. I didn't know anyone here. And so I was trying to get my coworkers to do NaNoWriMo with me. And I tried for 5 years. And every year I would send out this email to everyone I worked with at the bank, people who were not traditionally interested in writing. And I would say, oh my gosh, writing is amazing. Please do NaNoWriMo with me. You're going to love the feeling of having written a rather terrible novel within a month. And nobody ever did it with me. And it was so frustrating. And I wanted to share this joy with everyone. And so that's part of it. Part of it is me trying to get other people to write so that they can feel this amazing thing that writing brings into you, that just the joy of creation. I want to share that with people.
That
So
is
that's
awesome.
yeah.
That is beautiful.
But I feel like it's selfish in a way because it's like me needing to share this with people. So it's very selfish.
See, that's just more of an indication and validation of how wonderful of a person you are. That you're gonna guilt yourself into wanting to share a beautiful, exciting, thrilling, fulfilling thing with other people.
It's like, here, help me help you. So that's one thing. Another thing is, I grew up in a large family, and we were all very close. And I moved away to go to college when I was college age, whatever age that was. And I immediately started looking around for a giant family, right? Like it's just something that I need. I love people. I'm an introvert, but I love people. It's very weird and complicated. So I wanted to surround myself with people. And I realized the way to do this was to make a family wherever I went, make a community wherever I went, a safe space, a place where people would get excited about the same things I did. And so I've just found that that's something wherever I go, I have this need to make a community wherever I am. And the best way to do that is to get people excited about something. And the best way to do that is to be encouraging to them. And so that was really, even before I started the I Am a Writer Facebook group. I was running, when I was living in Chicago, I ran a very unsuccessful writers group. I held it in the Flatiron building in Wicker Park. Which used to be an amazing coffee place called Filter. And I invited everyone I knew in Chicago, and I had a recurring community of one. It was my friend Justin, bless his heart. He would show up out of pity to my writers group.
Oh. Justin,
so,
you're a good guy, Justin.
Justin, bless your heart, wherever you are, you're just an amazing person. So, I analyzed like what went wrong. Okay, it was asking too much of people, maybe, or it was me not giving enough value to people. People need a reason to come to something, and so I kind of worked on being encouraging, building a community, seeing what people were interested in gathering around, and really sort of becoming a nucleus, not to be what's the term? Self-grandiosizing?
Grandizing,
whatever.
yeah.
Whatever that word is. But just to be a central point that people could connect with their love of writing around. So that was another thing that I became an encouraging person to start building writing communities, because that's something that's very important to me. Another thing is I had good role models. When I was in fourth grade, and I had a teacher named Mr. Johnson, Brett Johnson. I recently reconnected with him on Facebook, which was freaking magical. But this fourth grade teacher that I had encouraged me to read and write. And I didn't know really what encouragement was at that age. You know, you're 9 years old, you're 10 years old. Um, but I remember to this day what a difference that teacher made to me. Like, I don't think I'd be where I am right now without having had Mr. Johnson as my fourth grade teacher, just because he encouraged me and fostered that love of writing and reading in me. And I want to do that for other people. I want people to look back and say, you know what, I am here today, and it's a little bit in part, you know, because of Sarah's encouragement of me, um, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's me like needing to insinuate myself in other people's lives, which sounds like really creepy and weird. Um, or maybe it's just an extension of community. Maybe it's an extension of wanting to be part of a community of writers and to not only help them tell their story, but to be a part of their story as well. So I had Mr. Johnson as a role model in fourth grade. I have a mentor now here in Sioux Falls named Melissa Johnson, and she's been on my show right now before. And she is an encourager. I moved here and I heard her speak at a leadership program that I went to, and I was like, I want to be like her. She's so encouraging and so positive, and she helps other people make their dreams come true, which is really what being a good person, part of what being a good person is about. And so we kind of formed a relationship, and she became my mentor and sort of taught me how to be encouraging to other people. And I began to see that the world gives back what you put into it. And I began to see that I was putting good stuff out there. I was learning to encourage people. I was giving talks. I was sharing positivity and this beautiful like golden energy with people. So I love giving talks. I love being on stage, looking out into the audience and just seeing all these eyes connecting with me, and seeing these people, seeing all sorts of different people take away a positive message. It's just really, really amazing. And it does a lot to combat a lot of the negative things that happen
Mm-hmm.
in life and that you see happening around you. Um, and so I saw Melissa doing this. I decided I wanted to do it. And so I feel like I'm rambling now, but other people as role models have been very, very helpful in this too.
Well, and no, and that's awesome. I still will debate my last breath that you're an introvert, but you know you better than I know you.
Well, I've taken the Myers-Briggs, and I'm like 49% extrovert and 51% introvert.
That make okay. I can accept that.
Yes, I'm like this weird all person because I'm in the middle of everything. Like I'm INFP, but I'm in the middle of
Of
everything. I'm like
everything.
49, 51% on all of those. So it's like I don't even know who I am or what I am.
with with this positivity and this constant encouragement, I'm sure, and in a little bit here, I'll ask you more personal questions if you're open to it. But for right now, what I have seen as an outside observer, I've been I'm a writer group since its inception, and I've seen it. I mean, I think I joined and you had 13 people maybe in the group at that point, and
Yep.
and that was only a few months ago, folks. I mean, it is. I don't even know, Sarah. It's over 1,500 or around that now,
Mhm,
somewhere.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I mean, one of the beautiful things that I have noticed about it was that constant spirit with and maybe you're doing a bunch of magic behind the scenes, but your personality and the way you're able to connect and communicate with people transcends, digital blockades to communication through the internet. You've set up very clear guidance on what you want for that group. And in the half year that it's been up there, I think there was only one situation. It was very temporary, flash in a pan, and boom, it was gone. And
Mm.
what I have seen as an outsider is more and more people in that group kind of modeling your behavior. And I know you're a humble person, so I'm not going to ask you to speak to that. But when it comes to the possible benefits to a community for someone else, not necessarily Sarah Werner, but if you've
Mhm.
got somebody listening to this and they want to do this. They want to encourage other people. They want to, um, give them that little positive message in the middle of a really lousy day, when their friend is struggling with writing, but they can't do those things because they're stressed out with their own life. They're they're just worn out. They meant to get that short story done. They've got NaNoWriMo coming up, and they're getting writer's block. What could you say to someone like that who innately has those character traits? They are a positive person. They are an encouraging person, but the reality of life just, it just weighs them down, and yet they'll see someone like you doing it. So what are the things that you could say to help them tune into what you're able to do almost effortlessly? That's what it looks like to me. And then maybe tie that into the benefits of the larger community. As far as, do you see that paying off bigger dividends for a collective of people?
What a great question. This is absolutely a great question. It's something I like to talk about. So I do a lot of stuff. You kind of said that in the introduction. I'm always doing something. And a lot of, I think what I do comes off as looking effortless, when really behind the scenes, I can't even tell you how much work it is. I can't tell you how much work it is. And one of the things that I would absolutely love to do one day is break down that barrier and to say, look at how much work this is, because it fights against the notion of being an overnight success, because there is no such thing as being an overnight success. You get out of something, I think, what you put into it. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I'm not just talking about labor. I'm not talking about, I'm going to sit down and do something I don't want to do for 6 hours. When I talk about work, what I'm talking about is expending your energy. I'm talking about being very intentional, and coaching yourself into a mindset where you are serving other people. So this is something that's very important to me. My dad was a minister when I was growing up, and so I grew up religious. And one of the things that I learned at an early age was that we exist to help and serve other people. Like, that's just how we should be as good people, as people of faith and people of love. And so, not to like get all preachy, but this is I'm just explaining where this mindset comes
I get
from.
you.
And so being very intentional about serving people and putting your entire self, you kind of have to be all in, and putting yourself to the side, putting your own wants and needs to the side to serve other people, is really, I think, how I'm able to do it. And it's so interesting that when you pour yourself into helping other people, you actually, when you go into things with an other people first and me second sort of attitude, you actually, I don't know how to explain it, but it actually becomes a good thing for you. It amplifies your message. Other people start catching on. They understand that you're here to help them, and that is your first purpose. So I think that my overarching advice would be intentional about putting other people first. And it sounds counterintuitive, but I think you will be surprised at how well it works.
Here's where I differ from you and why I think I'm drawn to you. I want to be there to help other people. That's the only reason this show exists. It's not part of my Patreon platform for my own audio drama or my other writing. I only do it because I just felt I wanted to be, I didn't see other writers specifically trying to aim at the life skills of writing. And I thought, hey, that's a neat little place where I feel completely comfortable stepping into because of my professional background. And I'm going to do this just to serve others. But it doesn't wear on me in a negative way necessarily. It just wears me down. It wears me out. And all anybody has to do is look at the published history of the show, and they can see where I've had to prioritize my life away from serving other writers in the way that I feel I best can, which is through this show. With you, I have known you and I followed your stuff for probably about 2 years now. And I haven't necessarily seen you do that. So with my interest of trying to not paint a picture of a mountain too high to climb for some folks. Some people may see you as a superhero. Okay. And if they followed you, I mean, if they followed you, it can look like that. It's amazing to me how you can be so positive and so encouraging for so long, so often, so consistently. And so you were talking about you got to be 100% in, right? Serve others before you serve yourself. I'm sure that your armor gets chinks in it from time to time. And I'm sure there are times when you got to just curl up on the couch with a cup of tea or coffee in a book and recharge the system that is Sarah Werner. Where do you draw that from, that energy, that inspiration to continue on when maybe you are worn out? How do you refresh to stay as consistent as you appear to those of us on the outside?
Oh my gosh, what another great question. And I maybe hinted at this a little bit earlier when I said I want to break down this barrier, this wall that shows me, what I want people to see, I think sometimes, is when I come home so I write from coffee shops. When I come home at 5 o'clock and I just reek of coffee, and my husband is here, he works from home, he's also a writer, and he says, "Sarah, you look terrible." And
I mean, I'm sure he means it in the most loving way.
he is. He's loving. He's sweet, but we're also just very, very honest with each other all the time, constantly. And so he'll tell me when I look terrible, and I appreciate that. And what I'll say, so it's like 5 o'clock, and I'll just say I'm going to bed, and I will I'll shoo the cats out of the bedroom. I will shut the door, and I will burrow under the covers and just lay there breathing, and maybe read a book on my iPhone, and I will stay there like a tiny weird fetus for 4 hours and not move. And it's this is the me that people don't see. This is the Sarah going catatonic because there's a balance. And this is something that I feel like I'm a little hypocritical about, that I feel like I have not mastered. And that is, I love giving and I give constantly. And it kind of, it wears on you. It burns you out. I recently left a very good job in marketing because I was so burned out. And I don't have an answer for that necessarily. And I love that you're coming with this question from an angle of self-care, because it's something that I'm still dealing with. And part of the internet is it's this weird engine that gives you the ability to seem bigger than you are, right?
Right.
Like you use the word superhero, and without sounding like a creep, it's very easy to project a certain image of yourself. And right. I think what we're missing is the human level, right? Because the internet allows us to be very human with each other, but it also keeps you from seeing the 4 hours that I am like my face is all greasy and bloated, and I'm curled up like a little kernel of popcorn in the center of the bed, under these covers, reading a book, wearing these gross stained sweatpants. Sweatpants Sarah maybe needs to make more public appearances somehow, just to show that I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. One of my lifelong dreams has been to write a novel, and ask me how many novels I've published for myself.
Do you? I'm afraid to, because I know what my answers to that is too. Sarah, how many novels have you published?
Well, Paul, I have published 0 novels.
Wow, shocker! I did not see that coming.
But yeah, you see, it's. I don't know, and part of me feels dishonest sometimes for portraying myself as successful. Part of me feels like people need to see that if I'm going to be a good role model. So I think I'm still kind of struggling there with what's the right thing to do, and how vulnerable should we allow ourselves to be. I feel like if I'm going to share something vulnerable of myself, it's just going to gross people out. They'll be like, "Ew, she should put on some makeup," or "What is that stain on her sweatpants?"
Just even sharing that piece of what it's like for you, that in that being that vulnerable, I really appreciate that, because that's not easy to do. Some people wouldn't even have gotten that far because they're worried about protecting that writer brand, if you will.
Yeah.
You know. All of us have horrible writing experiences. That's, that's the whole reason I started this show, is self-deprecating humor. If you cannot laugh at yourself first, you have no right to laugh at other people, is Paul's opinion on the world. And I can laugh at myself quite easily. There's a lot to laugh at. I've got a lot of material to work with. So for the 15 episodes before you came on, one of the things that I do is I've, shared my own horrible writing experience. And in episode 14, I asked Raul Vega, those of you who haven't heard it yet, go check it out. He's the creator of Rose Drive podcast and a great sound engineer. But he shared one of his. So I've got 14 of the 15. Raul's got one. And now we're going to add Sarah to the hall of shame for horrible writing experiences. So Sarah, share, if you wouldn't mind, a horrible writing experience that you have had, and maybe give us a little bit of a positive message to walk away from with that experience of yours.
All right. I will try my best. So when you think of the word experience, you think of something immediate, like a flash, a very short time span, right? My experience is going to be an 8-year-long experience, and I won't take that long to tell it, but in, let's see, July of 2006, I began to write a novel. And it was it was weird. It was like historical fiction, but also like pulp fiction. So I don't know what to call that. It was like weird. I don't know. I write a lot of weird stuff. I really like weird imagery. I like body horror. I like science fiction. I like all that stuff. So it was a weird pulp novel. But the important thing to this story is that it was historical. Because I wanted to explore like weird body horror stuff in a like Napoleonic era.
Okay.
And this was before like Pride and Prejudice and zombies and all that stuff came out, but that's another tale for another day. So I was really interested in playing around with this, the age of manners and what happens when like somebody who has more feral instincts is sort of entrenched in that society. And so I started writing. And I loved this idea. I was in love with this idea that I had. I was like, I'm so smart. I'm so amazing. And I'm going to write this thing and it's going to be my masterpiece with a capital M. And I started writing and I loved it. And I did a few things along the way. First, one of the things I did was I researched as I went, which any of you who have ever written a historical novel or written a historical piece will know that it is a 2 steps forward, 8 steps back kind of process, because you get out of the flow of your writing and you say, well, would they be using candles for light, or would they have argand lamps, or would they have the, beginning vestiges of electricity at this? So you end up doing research. What kind of floors would they have? Would they be made of stone or marble or what? So I let myself get caught up in the details, and I let myself fall in love with the details. And I worked on this novel for 8 years. And I took a word by word perfect approach. And so I wouldn't move on from one word until the next word was perfect, until I was completely in love with everything that I had written.
Oh my God. Wow.
And yeah, you can maybe see where this is going. And, oh boy, I can't tell you the hours and hours and hours that I put into this. Like looking back, I'm just so horrified. But basically what happened is, fast forward to probably about 2013 or 2014. So math is hard. Yeah. 6 or 7 years later. And I'm finally ready. I have probably about 40,000 words, and the novel's probably about a third of the way through. And I'm like, I should probably let someone else read this. And so I sent it to one of my best friends, and I gave it to my husband. And I was very nervous and my heart was racing, but I was like, oh my gosh, wait until they see these perfect words that I've chosen. And you can probably tell where this is going. Yep. Both of them came back to me and they said, it's a good start, which is probably the most crushing thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one of the most crushing things a writer can hear.
Yeah. It's so
And
true.
and the common theme was it's very poetic, but nothing happens.
Oh.
And I realized that in telling this person's story, um, my novel didn't have a plot. It was just her looking around, observing things for 40,000 words.
Oh.
And it seems like such an oversight, but when you're down in the details, making word by word beautiful and perfect, you forget that you need to be writing a story. So I spent 8 years and 40,000 words on a project that I'm counting as this big shameful failure. And it's just so many things went wrong with it. It was first and foremost being so completely in love with your work that you refuse to change it. Um, being so completely in love with an idea, digging your claws into something and saying, I can't work on anything else because I'm working on my masterpiece. It's just, it was just this perfect storm. I wrote this perfect mistake and I'm so deeply embarrassed by it because it's unpublishable and it's not even I went back and I read it with new eyes and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is just this character whining in her head to herself for 40,000 words and literally nothing
I
happens."
was going to ask you if you'd ever gone back and tried to do that, tried to take the fresh look and dive back in, or if it had become, a beast, a caged beast behind that locked door, and you were just not going to open that. So, yeah, oh God, that's painful. That
It was
hurts.
painful. It was painful, and it was, and it's not really something I've ever told anyone about, and I think that most of the horrible writing experiences will involve, a rejection letter or being laughed at when you read a poem that you're proud of, which has also happened to me, but I wanted to share this one because it's this deeply insular shame that
Hmm.
whenever I think about this, I just feel this sense of wasted time, of shame, of embarrassment, of how in love I was with this thing that I had written and how blind I was.
Do you think
Um,
that's a stage of life thing? I mean, you were talking 2006, so 11 years ago. You're 11 years older now. So if you were to start typing word one today, though, do you think your headspace would be different? That you
mm,
would love it, but you wouldn't be in love with it?
yes, and you know what? I love that you brought that up because so I'm working on this new project now that you alluded to earlier. It's an audio drama called Girl in Space. And Girl in Space is the next biggest fiction project I've worked on since my horribly failed novel. And the tenet I had to take with this was I'm going to put myself on a 2 week timetable. Each episode, I will have 2 weeks to work on it, and I will not be word perfect with it. I will make it as good as I can, release it, and move on. And so I sit down and I don't edit as I write and I don't do any research. I just rely on things I think I know. Um, and it's it's such a smoother and more satisfying creation process because nobody will ever read that horrible novel that I wrote so many years ago that I took 8 years to write. But people are listening now to this thing that I think I've learned to let go of the idea of perfection. I've learned to let go of my inflated ego. I've learned to, because, when you graduate from college, which is when I had first started writing my novel, I was like, I've had top education in literature and I'm very important and I know how to use metaphors and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that anymore. I know how much I don't know. And I know that as I write, I'm learning.
Mhm.
And I know now that I can create stuff. And there's a beautiful freedom. If you're not digging your claws desperately into this thing you're in love with, then you're free to explore other new ideas and you're free to create and you're free to put stuff out there for people to read and enjoy. You have to remember that's why you're creating things. It's
Yep.
not just so that you can like air your dirty mental laundry. It's so that you can make things for other people. And that's what I'm doing now. And it brings me great joy. And I guess I learned a lot if you're talking about positive experiences. So I tell people all the time, don't edit as you go. Like, leave spaces for research later. Just focus on getting the story out there. Focus on creating your terrible first draft, because no matter how much you love it, your first draft will be terrible, and that is okay. So I learned a lot from that experience, and it has definitely influenced the way that I write and create today.
And I mean, I'm going to celebrate that anyways. But, and now listeners who may not have the full context now, I mean, this is a nice segue into what we're going to wrap up with here. But for you, one, let me hit the mental pause button. Thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for sharing that part of your life and your writer's journey. That's not easy. That's not easy for us to admit. But again, I knew you would be amazing to have on as a guest, because you would be able to open those types of doors, share those kind of stories with folks with the perspective, with the vector of wanting to help others in their own journeys. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's because even when you were telling, that's a hard story. After I got divorced, back in about the same time you were doing this, it must have been something in that time
That's
frame.
been a bad time.
Yeah, 2005 to 2006 ish. In 9 months, I wrote a 300,000 word epic high fantasy book of it's going to be a trilogy.
Cute.
It was. I mean, every morning got up at 5. My daughters got up at 7. I had 2 hours of, just focused on that, and I had a job I hated, so it was the only part of the day I actually enjoyed until I got to see my kids at night, type of thing. And deployed after that, about 3 or 4 months after I had finished that first draft, and I haven't looked at that book since. So I kind of go back to where you were at that time, as far as looking back at that time and all that effort that I put into that thing, and I could have pulled it back out, and I'm so embarrassed by what I read that I just want to move on with other things at this point.
Yes. Like, you kind of need to get the crap out of your system.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to flush this. I think it's, I don't think we can even, I won't anyways myself, chain it to chronology. There's just at a certain point in your life, you could be 16, 26, 46, 86. Something switches in your brain, I believe, if you're serious about it and you put that honest effort into it, and you're able to look at your work with that, not necessarily disassociated, but maybe detached eyes. So that's why I say all this to say to listeners, hear what Sarah just shared with you, that significant of a time investment, of a passion investment into this project. And she was able to walk away. Not only was she able to walk away, but continue on with her passions. And her show, Girl and besides the fact that we're going to talk about here in a second about how successful you are with that, just putting that audio drama out there. She didn't put out a short story on a blog or out on Reddit or something along those lines. She went and did a full-scale audio drama with it for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So that's a heck of a journey to go to, from Sarah, for this one thing that you worked on forever and had 2 people look at, to now you're just writing and you're like, here, world, go peek inside my head. Here you go. So let's talk about Girl in Space to kind of celebrate what I see now, especially now that I have that context. I mean, just this evolution of you as a writer, that's a heck of a thing to celebrate. So let's give you a moment to brag about you. Please do not be humble. Tell my listeners of Horrible Writing a little bit about Girl in Space, what it is, some of the success you've had if you're comfortable, and then what they can expect maybe in the future from you and the show.
Yeah. Well, gosh, this is something that I'm terrible at doing, and that is talking about myself. And I think a lot of writers feel the same, because it's like, oh, well, my work serves as a surrogate for me talking about myself. But no, Girl in Space has been one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and it's because I've shared it with people. It's because I've sort of taken a step back from myself and created something that I thought other people might connect with and enjoy. And it has seen some lovely success. It reached number 3 on the performing arts charts in iTunes. It continues to remain on the charts today. Weirdly, my other show right now has appeared once again on the charts, I think, because of the connection there. So it's
Mhm.
kind of, there's been some ripples of success there. I've been featured on Spotify. I've been featured, I think this week I'm being featured on Podbean. So if you open up the Podbean app, you should see Girl in Space there. Um, it's just, and I've had people offer to sponsor the show, which I've so far been turning down because I don't want commercials. But
I
and
love how
I
you
don't
say that
know.
like it's a dirty thing.
Well, I just think about what I want as a listener, and it's like, yeah, if I'm being honest, I skip through commercials. I do. I hit that 30-second forward button, and maybe I shouldn't, but I do. And I think the best thing that I've experienced is the thing it's amplified my favorite thing about being a writer and creating a writing community is I've joined this audio drama community, and it has been breathtakingly wonderful. And I want to go back to something that you started our conversation with, and that was, why do people in the writing community feel like they have to compete with each other? Why can't we just take joy in sharing each other's stuff and their accomplishments? The audio drama community, audio drama Sunday hashtag on Twitter, it's just been a great way for not only people to share my work, but for me to find new audio dramas that then I can share. And you become part of this network that's so positive. And it's just, and I think that that's been where a lot of the growth of Girl in Space has come from. Not only because I am proudly a member of the Fate Crafters podcasting
Whoop
network,
whoop.
as are several of your shows. Um, but just becoming part of this community and having other people amplify your work. And that's where really being part of a community will provide value to you as a writer. It gives you a place to amplify your work and to have your work amplified. That is extremely powerful.
It really is, and that's why listeners, you can test me on it. Go back to the beginning of this show, and I Am a Writer Facebook group has always been touted by me because it is. You have provided a vehicle, Sarah. So now here's your personal fulfillment, your payday, your Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing. But the time that you have taken to do that and keep that group alive and keep it vibrant and robust has served a multitude of purposes, and hopefully I'll have a chance to speak to more writers from that group on here. But for me on a personal level, it has gotten me through days when comparinitis has crushed
Mm,
my creative spirit, and I'm like, why bother? Why do I even bother getting up at 4:58 in the morning to do this when I see, Joe Blow roll around with whatever, and Joe Blow is being touted as the next best thing in the world.
mhm,
Those dark days that I think most creatives have, um, your group and your spirit has gotten me through those. So I want to thank you for that because you're exactly right. We don't have to. This is one of the beautiful things about the community that seems to revolve around you. Where you go, you spread this kind of stuff, and you've done it. You came into Fate Crafters after we'd already been operating for about 8 months, and you can feel the positivity coming off of you, and it changes. The dynamic changes when you join these kind of communities, i.e. I Am a Writer on Facebook with Sarah Werner. It's not, hey, go buy my book, here's my blog. It is truly a community of, I'm struggling, and I just want to shout out to other people who are going to get it, and I'm not shouting into the void.
mm.
You've done, hopefully this Girl in Space is just the beginning of the good karma that should be coming your way anyways, because for years you've been already paying into the system, paying it forward to other people who might not even know your name yet today. Maybe they will a year or two from now when you write that next great American novel. But I wanted to take that time and thank you for that. And I'm so happy that Girl in Space has done what it's done. I will never share your secrets in public. It is such a personal joy for me to watch you go from inspiration to conception, inception to asking all of the questions that you did to the success you're at now. Nobody deserves that kind of success more than you do, and I'm so absolutely happy for you. But
Well,
that's not
thank
all
you.
you're doing, though, right? People can find you other places besides just Girl in Space. Um, can you hit on the Right Now podcast a little bit and tell folks what that's all about?
I can, and by doing that, so I have another podcast, and it's called Right Now, so WRITE now, and I want to talk about it in the context of this conversation I had in one of the episodes with audio drama writer producer Paul Sading,
Oh, I heard he's a
and
good guy.
and you talk about encouragement and you talk about building community, and um, I never even thought about starting an audio drama, right? Because I was a novelist. I was a failing novelist, but I was a novelist. And I had this conversation with you, Paul Sading, because I was like, "Oh, I've never talked to an audio drama writer before. This should be interesting."
Oh,
And
you're
by the
being
end of
nice.
our
I just
conversation,
hounded you. You're being real nice. I was just like, not.
no, no, this was awesome. It's exactly what the show needed. And you can listen to that episode. I don't remember what number it is, but if you do a Google search, you'll be able to find it. It You can hear me being converted during this episode. And by the end of the episode, I'm like, "Well, Paul, I think you've convinced me to start my own audio drama." And you did. And Paul was so gracious. He's been such a mentor to me throughout this entire process. You talk about me asking questions. Well, you're the one who answered them, so thank you. Um, you're giving so much to this community, and you give so much to the Fate Crafters Network, and I want to make sure that that you get recognized for that. So what I want to do is like twist the other projects I'm working on to say thank you.
Well, thank you. And basically, and I think, and folks, honestly, we're not being flippant. This is, it's, I recruited Sarah hard once I knew that she was going to do audio drama because I believe this community needs more people like her. Not that everybody else is so bad and so it's not about that. It's about this selfless giving of self before I need something, not with the intent of getting something behind. I've never felt that from Sarah. It's always
Mm-mm.
just been, you need something? Sure. Or here's a kind word because it sounds like you're really beating yourself up on your writing kind of thing. And you just have this natural skill for it. And I know other people do, but we don't necessarily, myself included, I'm the first one to throw my hands up, don't necessarily take the time to step in when we see that with others, and you always have. So you can try to thank me all you want, but whatever. I've got editorial control over this. No, I kid. But honestly, thank you. You're absolutely absolute inspiration. You may be newer to audio drama than me. It does not mean that I don't draw inspiration from you constantly, but beyond the creative elements, but even in the creative elements. So people who have already fallen in love with you, like I said they would, where can they find you?
Oh man, well, I'm on the internet.
You are.
Um, you may have heard of this thing called the Information Superhighway. I'm on it. You can find me at sarahwerner.com. That's SARAHWERNER.com. All of my podcasts are out there, including Right Now and Girl in Space. You can find me, let's see, on the Twitters. I'm at Sarah Ray Werner. That's SARAHRHEAWERNER. Let's see, Right Now Podcast also has a Twitter account. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all these superfluous social media channels that maybe I should like pare back a little bit. You can also, I went from being accessible via email because the email got to be too much. I am accessible through the I Am a Writer Facebook group, which Paul has mentioned in this and previous episodes. So if you want, you can pop by, say hello. It's a closed group, so just ask for an invitation and I'll let you in. But yeah, I'd love to connect with you online. I'd love for you to listen to my shows and buy the books that I haven't written yet. Hooray!
Yes, it's coming. It's coming. All right, folks, you have heard it there. Definitely go check out Girl in Space. I have rarely have I been moved to listen to full episodes of single narrator, even though that's not fair because you don't have strictly single narrator. But usually my attention span, I need more than that. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, That's an indication of the strength of your writing. You get the character, you get character voice, you get pacing, all that stuff. So if you're a writer not into audio drama yet, and the stuff that I write scares you a little too much to try it out, I definitely tell you to go check out Girl in Space, because it's got it. It really does. And then of course, I'm gonna also follow up, Sarah, on that, the Right Now podcast. Again, that's where I fell in love with Sarah's encouragement and her personality and just her caring. Good day, bad day, indifferent day. If you're a writer, go check out that show. It is so full of tidbits, tips, tools, and tactics that are going to help you survive this writing journey that we're all on. Sarah, you've humbled me. You've honored me. Thank you so much for coming on to Horrible Writing and sharing everything that you did. It is meant so much to me. And thank you so much for everything that you do day in and day out for all of us.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. It's been a joy to get to know you, to be mentored by you, to join your network, to do all of these wonderful things in the communities that you've created as well. So thank you for hosting me today, and thank you just for being awesome.
All right, once again, everyone, thank you for taking so much time to sit down and listen to that chat with Sarah. Again, there isn't a kinder, nicer, more giving person in the writing community that I have found. Well, I think Sarah would be okay sharing that title with Susan K. Quinn, who is absolutely as remarkable, and who I hope someday I can bribe, ask if she'll come on to the show. Fingers crossed, right? So, hey, definitely go check out Right Now podcast with Sarah Werner. Definitely go adventure into the furthest reaches of space with her audio drama, Girl in Space, and just kind of keep track of everything she's doing. She writes some great Forbes articles that are just as helpful in the arts. Again, an outstanding member of the community. We are lucky to have her. I am Paul Sading. You can go find out all about me, more than you want to, over at paulsading.com. PaulSating.com. You can see my audio dramas there. Sign up for the newsletter so you can find out about the books that are coming out someday in some unknown future. Or anything else that I decide to share on those newsletters. It's not bad. It's family friendly, I think. Yeah, it's family friendly. All right, folks. This has been a wonderful interview. We will have more to come in the future. I have a few folks who are lined up. I just need to schedule dates, and I'll be bringing those to you. Let me know what you think about this. If it's nice to have interviews with writers who are willing to share life skill stuff versus just tips of the trade. Until we hear from each other, go over to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get this. And if they have a way you can give this a 5-star rating and a wonderful review, please go do so. It takes a couple minutes of your time, but it makes all of this time that I spend on this show worthwhile. Thank you so much. Keep being epic. This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sading, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse at Writing Horrible and over at paulsading.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.